So I did not have the privilege of meeting Dr. Sharon Carnahan in 2015 when I became president of Rollins College. But of course, the Rollins community has enjoyed the privilege of her service since 1990. Her expertise in developmental psychology and passion for young children quickly found a home in the psychology department's Child Development and Student Research Center, which, as you all know, is a laboratory preschool approaching its 50th anniversary, which is so cool. And this is the 7th year in Hume House, which I was here to dedicate. Such a welcoming space for Rollins' youngest learners that she championed with characteristic vision and, shall I say, tenacity. As one of her faculty colleagues noted, Rollins is a better place because Sharon Carnahan has been such a good neighbor for 34 years. Dr. Carnahan earned her bachelor's degree at Hope College, followed by a master's and doctoral degrees at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Highly regarded by her professional colleagues, she's devoted her career, really her life, to making communities on every scale better for children. In her role directing our Child Development and Student Research Center since 1993, that's only 3 years after she got here, she has worked tirelessly to support inclusion efforts for children with disabilities and incorporating best practices and constructing individual behavior plans that attend to specific developmental needs. She's also conducted this work with Central Florida Child Care Centers and with child care providers in Costa Rica, Ecuador, Rwanda, and most recently as an invited scholar with the Global Livingston Institute in Uganda. Local implementation of her developmental screening initiative called Screen for Success was funded by the Winter Park Health Foundation and the Bank of America Foundation. You all know that Dr. Carnahan excels as a public scholar, translating research into language that's accessible to parents and preschool teachers and students. She strives to share knowledge and elevate important issues around children's well-being far beyond the Rollins classroom. She regularly publishes op-eds identifying concerns and challenges for young children and families in light of current local, state, and world environments. Please join me in welcoming one of our children's best friends, Dr. Sharon Carnahan.
Good evening, and thank you so much. I'm not going to talk about tonight what you think I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about how to make childcare better. I'm not going to talk about if you want your children to go to Lake Highland or Trinity Prep. I'm not going to talk about the elite decisions between gentle parenting and authoritarian parenting that we struggle with. And I'll tell you why. It's the babies with no diapers and flies in their eyes that pursue me in my dreams. They're the reason that I've stayed in this work. And so tonight, we're going to learn about what every child in the world needs and what every child should have. Welcome to an extension of Hume House, and meet our team. Diane Doyle, where are you? Alice Davidson, soon to be Executive Director of Hume House. Our wonderful teaching staff, where are you? And of course, the students, without whom we would not exist. If there were no students and no research, the CDC would turn into a daycare in 5 years. Okay? So it's our mission that makes it a wonderful place. This is a picture of my 82nd developmental psychology class. Okay, that was nice. Now you have to stop clapping or I'll be here all night, okay? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. For 17 years, Diane Torrey Doyle has accompanied me on every single journey. She is the muscle behind my crazy ideas. She is the moderator who says, maybe not this year. And she is the push that gets things done. She and Dr. Davison are going to be a fabulous team. Don't clap. This is the Child Development Center. Have any of you never been there? If you've never been there, please come and have a tour. This is the old CDC, Ruth House, a tiny little building over by the tennis courts. On the left-hand side, you see a young Alice Davidson holding advanced developmental psychology outside because there is no room inside. On the right, you see the staff break room, student meeting room, research room, storage room, mailbox for teachers, and above the backpack is all the electronics for the building. So what is a lab school? We don't put electronics on their heads. We don't shock them, at least not yet. I hear Dr. Juan Guevara Pinto has some ideas. We model high-impact practices. Well, more about that later. We train students and the community. We do research and experimental learning, something different every year. We have a commitment to staff development. Several of our teachers have finished master's degrees, and we are constantly engaging in reading and new ideas. And we serve faculty, staff, and student children. These are parts of our mission, and they make us a member of the International Association of Lab Schools. Our inspiration is especially from Fred and Joanne Rogers. Joanne was a long-term friend who brought us Hedda Sherapan, who gave us our playground, and who encouraged us. Warren and Augusta Hume were staunch supporters from the moment when we had 18 little ones in the old CDC, and of course, all the children. We hope to be everybody's lab school. This year, we have modern languages, reading Spanish. We have applied behavior analysis, AVAX program, doing practica. Sometimes we think there are more RBTs in the building than there are children. We have Matt Forsyth leading children in writing books, and we have Dr. J.U. Running a program in diversity in education. In past years, we've had philosophy, chemistry, physics, and the theater. Y'all come. Tonight I'm going to be talking briefly about the state of our children in America. I'm going to focus mainly on this country. Then I'm going to introduce 5 principles by which all children can thrive by 5, and end with some action steps. 50 years has seen a lot of progress for children all around the world. We have reduced maternal child mortality rates. Almost 80% of the world's children have access to school from kindergarten through 6th grade. We are doing better and better at educating girls, and immunizations have reduced child death rates around the world. Now, on my left arm, I have a scar. I got it because I had a smallpox vaccine. Raise your hand if you have a smallpox scar. Why don't you have a smallpox scar?
Because other people have smallpox scars?
Because other people got smallpox scars until we eradicated it from the face of the earth. Now that's worth clapping for. On the left is my beautiful mother, Marie. That's me, spitting water on top. My mother was one of the last Americans to get polio, as well as Alice Davidson's dad, Mike. My mother had polio throughout her pregnancy with my older sister, pictured in the water, and Ellen came out with all 10 fingers and 10 toes. She's a little mean, but aside from that, she's fine. So my mother survived the polio epidemic by being in one of these, called an iron lung. Right? My father put a sign at the end that said penny a peek and a little comma. It was as she began to go into labor that she first breathed against the machine. Polio was eradicated in the United States by 1979. The first vaccine was in 1953, the exact year my mother contracted it. That's a long time. You math friends, how many years is that? A lot of years. A lot, right? Like 40 days and 40 nights, it just means big. So polio took all that time from vaccination to eradication. Now, unlike helping the world's children, polio was a technical problem, like landing on the moon. Once we knew how to do it technically, we did it. We know exactly how to save every child on the planet, okay? But we don't do it. Let's talk now about the things in which we do not get an A+. In Florida, 1 in 5 children are poor. 17% don't know where at least one of their meals are coming from this week. We are in a child care crisis. Representatives from Welborn Avenue Day Nursery and Winter Park Day Nursery are here, and our friends at Orlando Day Nursery will tell you the same. We are in a child care crisis. It costs too much, it's terribly difficult to maintain quality, and there aren't enough spaces. I see some parents of young children here. Raise your hand if you spend $1,000 or more a month on child care. Okay. Now imagine if you and your partner together make $43,000 a year, which is a nose above the poverty level for people in Florida. You, your partner, and your 2 kids. Where are you going to get $2 grand a month to pay for child care? Well, you're not. And if you're lucky, you'll get your child into Winter Park Day Nursery. Why can Winter Park Day Nursery have more affordable rates? Because they have an army of people writing grant proposals and collecting money for them, and augmenting. Why can churches afford to provide lower rates for childcare? Because they're being subsidized. Think about that. 60% of Florida's 4th graders cannot read over the basic level. Okay? 40% of 4th graders could not fill out a form with their name and address. Mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders are on the rise. You all know that. You see it in your work, you see it in your neighborhoods, you see it in your dorms. In Mississippi, worst in the nation, the infant mortality rate is as bad as it is in Uganda. Okay. 9 out of 100,000 babies die by their first birthday. 13 for African Americans, highlighting the racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare access, healthcare provision, healthcare quality, and simply what's called allostatic stress. That's kind of the wear down from being a person of color in a prejudiced world. The simplest way I can say it. Finally, the average parental leave, this one makes me laugh and cry. The average parental leave in the United States, unpaid leave, is 29 days. 29 days, and that's the average before women go back to work. Raise your hand if you've had a child. Can you remember what it was like in 30 days? I can't remember because I hadn't had any sleep. Right, let's just go on. Right? I cannot imagine. And pair these things up together. Instead of thinking them as individual squares, Now start collapsing them across the screen. Parental leave average, 29 days. Lack of time to form an attachment relationship with an infant or toddler. Child care crisis, struggling to find good quality care, especially for infants, and to give good quality care when wages are so low. Connect that up with mental, behavioral, developmental disorders on the rise. Oh, come on, we can connect the dots. So what are we supposed to do? Share. We have to share. We do. We don't want to share. Finished my taxes yesterday. I owed 60 bucks. I danced around the living room. I actually don't want to pay $3,000 to help with the people in my community. I should want to. Maybe if I were a good enough person, I wouldn't want to. We do not have enough money for programs that work. We know it works, we don't fund it. We don't bring them to scale, we don't fund them consistently, and we don't have economic solutions to the shared prosperity with all the children and families in our communities. 8.8 million children who are eligible for Head Start. Put your finger on your nose if you know what Head Start is. Okay, Head Start's a wonderful wraparound care and education program for 4-year-olds and early Head Start birth to 4. 8.8 million children who are eligible for free lunch did not get it in 2021 because the states ran out of money. 75% of the children who are eligible for Head Start don't go because there aren't enough slots. Housing wait lists for affordable housing for a family of 4 in every single major city in the United States. The wait list is 3 times the number of available spots. We know what to do, but we don't want to share. Now, I'm about to kind of whip through 5 basic things that all children need. If you'd like action steps, I direct you to the UN Sustainable Development Goals websites, which spell out in enormous detail by experts exactly what we should be doing. But I want to talk to you about how all children can thrive by the time they're 5. Yes, I stole that. I want to focus on what matters most. In developmental psychology, this is called the average expectable environment concept. What this means is that child development is like Jenga. And these 5 elements are like the bottom of the Jenga. If you pull out any one of them all the way, and then pull out another one, the Jenga will fall. So these are the pillars of child development. According to the latest data that I've found, 16 million children in America lack at least one of these 5 elements. The first, to thrive by 5, is food, then love, followed by safe places, then enriching language, then literacy. Now, why is it important to think about thriving by 5? Well, I'll tell you, in brain development, it's pay now or pay later. And how will you pay later? Children who are missing one of these basic underpinnings, when they are grown up, have increased violence. I'm reading from a lit review here. Poor self-control. Increased rates of child maltreatment in their families, mental illnesses, higher rates of juvenile incarceration, which especially target the African American community. They die earlier, and they are part of an uneducated workforce because they can't function in school, which means a loss of competitiveness for the nation in the world of nations and a lower gross domestic product ultimately. You see, you want children to thrive by 5 because you love them and you're good-hearted. But you also want them to thrive by 5 because you want excellent educated workers in your future. Okay. Not like that guy in the bar, right? Okay. It's especially important to focus on the first 5 years because the brain develops so much. Now, this shows that at birth, the brain is about 25% of its weight, and by 5 years, it's about 90% of its weight. Now, of course, weight is just a very, very gross measure. Picture looking at a Google Earth photograph of Florida at night. You'd see all that light around Miami, and you'd go, oh, a lot of people are up at night in Miami, but you don't actually know that. You just know that there's a lot of light. I'm not stretching your brains too much, but what I'm trying to say is that this is just a really gross measure of brain function, weight, okay? Take a look at this picture, right? Okay. A newborn or 3-month-old can look at these two, perceive the difference between the two, and shows us that by looking longer at one or the other, okay? A 5-year-old can play chess and beat me. That's what happens in 5 years to the brain. So the first pillar is food. Right now, 13% of US children get food aid of some kind. There's more food insecurity this year than there was last year, up 40%. There are 1 in 5 children in the US are either obese or malnourished. Worldwide, 22% of children under 5 are stunted. Stunting, which might be a new word to you, means that the child looks perfectly typical, but is shorter, smaller, has a smaller brain, and is weaker overall. Okay. 40% of rural children in Ecuador, where I've worked, are stunted. Okay. Big ideas for getting food to children include urgent, fully funded federal programs. WIC is a nutrition program for women, infants, and children. TANF is a temporary assistance for needy families, and SNAP is food assistance program for low-income individuals and families. Most of my life I've lived very comfortably, but for about a year and a half I was water the formula at the end of the month poor. And I had WIC and Medicaid as a single mom of a birth to 3-year-old baby. Then I wrote a grant and got out of it. I submit to you that these programs and full funding them are vital to our children. I'm introducing with each of these 5 pillars. How am I doing okay? Yeah. Nobody needs to stretch? We're good? All right. With each of my five pillars, and I'm going to go quickly now, I'm going to talk about the pillar, and then a big idea, and then small changes. So our big idea is fully funding the programs we already have that are working. Small changes are things like food banks, summer food programs that allow supplements when public schools are closed. Weekend backpacks, I love this idea, where children on Fridays can go home with a backpack full of snacks, nutritious drinks, just to kind of tide them over till Monday. Coalition for the Homeless, the Second Harvest Food Bank just rolled out a Food Finder app. I love this. And if you have food to give away, you're a church or a synagogue or you're a restaurant, you put, just like we have here on campus where it says food's in the Galloway room, it says go to so-and-so and you can get food right now. Okay. And we are moving in the direction of changing the laws for reclaimed food. You know, all that stuff restaurants throw out at the end of the night that nobody's ever touched. Now it goes in the trash. We're moving in the direction of figuring out a way to use that. So how many pillars am I going to talk about? And what's the first one? Food. Number 2, nurturant and responsive caregivers. Well, in order to do this, you've got to have families who have time and are intact mentally and physically, and can take the time to talk to and nurture and care for their children. The big idea here is at least 24 weeks of paid parental leave. Boy, that sounds like a long time. How many months is that? There you go. If we did that, 24 weeks of paid parental leave, guess who we would be on par with? The Czech Republic and Hungary, right? They give 24 weeks. Everybody else in Europe gives more, right? EBF is exclusive breastfeeding to encourage those mothers who are able to breastfeed their children exclusively with, that means no other food, until at least 6 months of age. Would improve both the interactions between adults and children and the health of the child and the child's immunization system. Finally, I'm in favor of universal home nurse visiting. Right now in the United States, if you risk out on a risk checklist in the hospital when you have your baby, a person looks at your chart and determines that you might be at risk, and then they come and they interview you in the hospital. Those of you who have no risk factors wouldn't know about this because nobody ever talked to you. But a social worker comes in the room and says, hey, how are you doing? How are things at home? And then interviews you and runs a checklist. Is there drug use in the home? Are you a single mother? Are you under 18? And so forth. If you risk in, then you are eligible to receive a home visit from someone from your community who has been raised up and trained and supervised, who will then meet with you once a week for the first year of the child's life and sometimes till age 3. Healthy Families America is the largest such program, but there are lots of others. I'm in favor of a system used in other countries called universal home visiting. What this means is that every single mother and dad, or mother and mother, or dad and dad, everybody who had a new baby would get at least one home visit from an RN or LPN paid professional who would come in, assess the home, talk with the parents, identify any needs, and help them get connected to their community. I think in this case, an ounce of prevention would go a long way. And by the way, the organization that advocates for that is called Ounce of Prevention. Small changes that we can do now include new parent support groups, doulas, who are health professionals who help women during pregnancy and childbirth, neighborhood support groups, and one of my favorite, Marian Wright Edelman of the Children's Defense Fund. Anybody heard of her? Marian Wright Edelman? Okay, about 15 people. My heroine. I got to meet her. She signed my book. I went to a week of summer camp with her, as did my son Colin. Yeah. She has a program called One Church, One Child. And this, nurturing caregivers are raised up in a synagogue, a church, or a community group, and say, we would like to be adoptive or foster parents. Then the whole group pledges to support them financially and socially until the child turns 18. Babysit, take on camping trips, you're a member of a family. Like to see more family, more community. Every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about them, says Yuri Braunfenbrenner. Now I'm going to do a Mr. Rogers trick. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Conjure up the vision of one person who is crazy nuts about you. And we're going to take 30 seconds and just thank that person. Thank you, John, for being my person. And by the way, call your mom. Nurturing has also been supported by places like the Parent-Child Center of Rutland County, Vermont. These are places that run parenting groups and play groups and drop off childcare while you go shopping and community meals on the weekends. They form community centers for parents. In Vermont, there are 15. In Florida, there are 3. Lest you think that we don't know what we're doing in childcare in the United States. Our system is fractured, it is dysfunctional, it strives all the time to be good enough and better. But our childcare system really is messy. The best childcare there ever was at the child service centers built by the WPA during World War II, just before World War II, where they provided universal, high quality, and affordable care. In today's dollars, this center cost $8 a day per child. Okay? So it wasn't free. They provided immunizations, 3 meals a day. They were open 24 hours for shift workers. If you picked up your kids at 10 o'clock at night to go home, you had a hot meal and they had been bathed and they were there in their pajamas. Okay? The rationale behind this is what I really love here. Enable a female wartime workforce to work without worry. Oh, wouldn't it be great if every American mom and dad and dad and mom could work without worry about who's taking care of their kids? Okay. All right. So that's nurturing care. We're on number 3, loving language. This involves talking to children a lot. Naming things, talking in the car on trips, talking over what's being eaten at the table. Talk, followed by read. And inundating and surrounding the child with our beautiful language. Well, that makes sense, sure, we talk to our kids. Who doesn't talk to their kids? Why is it that somebody would not talk to their kids? Who in the first 2 rows could respond to that? What's a reason why parents would not be available to talk to their kids?
Stress.
Stress in the home? Okay. Why else?
They're absent due to work, due to other things.
They're working 60 hours a week, so stress, work. Melissa's holding up her phone. Everybody's on their phone around the table, right? Stress, work, phones, mental illness, depression makes us flat-faced. We go through the motions, we get the meals made, but we can't quite interact and respond. I was like that with my 2nd child for almost a year with postpartum depression. Okay. How to get parents to talk to their children is a tough one. National campaigns through social media and TV have had some effect. But the research is clear. Parents who talk to their children and use more complex language have children who do better in learning to read and in school and in other venues. The funding for our National Center on Improving Literacy and Language is very small. Like PBS, they have to fight for it every year. Placing literacy and language as a national priority would help. This one's hard because all children listen to some language, right? So you think, why did I pick language as one of the 5 pillars? Think of it this way. You get to kindergarten. Your teacher pulls out an animal book. And she says, A is for aardvark. Okay. All the rich kids in the room know exactly what an aardvark is. They've watched Zaboomafoo or whatever it is these days. They've had cute little books about animals. The kids with no books in their homes and nobody reading to them go, aardvark? What is that first letter? And the children who already know the word have a leg up on learning to spell the word and use the word and enroll it into their vocabulary. You understand? So it's not enough to just talk to your children. Get over here, sit down, give me your foot. I gotta wipe your face. Did you go to the bathroom yet? Get your backpack. Meet you in the car, okay? As my older son once famously said to me when I was rushing around like crazy trying to get the car, and I said, "Where's your backpack?" And we got into the car and sat down, and I said, "Matthew, I'm really sorry. I really kind of lost it today. And Mommy's calm now. We're gonna have a nice, safe drive to school." And my 5-year-old looked at me and said, "It's okay, Mommy. You are a Russian mom, but I am not a Russian boy." One of the small changes funding for National Center on Improving Literacy, small change, promotes storytelling and dramatic play, which frankly needs no props at all. This is my cup. Do you have any money for me tonight? I'm not being paid for this. This is my seat. This is my hearing aid. Right? This is my fan. Okay, this is my hat. This is my shining sun. So, dramatic play with children takes no money at all. It simply takes time and knowledge. Watch Daniel Tiger with your children. And I thought I would just mention at the end, New York City's 1 million fail. New York City spent $1 million putting signs in the subways that said, "Talk to your children in their first 5 years." And that's all it said. Talk to your children. And it made absolutely no impact. Give me the $1 million. Right? I just want to show you. Oh, you've seen this one? Well, not everybody has. This little clip gives you a picture of what's called serve and return language. Which I'm now going to practice with Stacy. Hi, Stacy. How are you? I like your black. We are talking back and forth. So let's listen to a dad and just pray that the internet gods are good to him.
As a housewife, I don't know what baby work.
Whoop. All right.
Baby work on that, right? Yes, okay. Did you understand it though? No. All right. Oh, not this one. This one is really down here. Yeah, this last one. As a housewife, I don't know when they're gonna be next season because they did some stuff this time. No, yeah. Right, don't bring that in. You know what I'm saying? Don't be saying to them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, go somewhere else, man. But don't bring it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. They did like, you know what I'm saying? What in the world? Don't do it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So we see there, and I would pull it out of you, but I want to pay attention to the clock. We see there the process of serve and return, something we call the as-if game. Always act as if your child's utterance had meaning, and respond to it as though it has meaning. Your child says, "Don't!" and you say, "Oh, look at that, I see that star." Always respond as though your child's utterance had a meaning. And that will easily put you into serve and return. You hear the difference between shut up, sit down, be quiet, stay in the car, don't touch that. Okay? Child's going to learn language either way, but one way is going to be richer in vocabulary and cognitive development. Here is Rochelle and her beautiful baby, showing us something similar. Cow. see? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not good with this, right?
Cow. Cow says moo. Moo. Yes. Moo. Yay. Open.
So Rochelle is doing one step above serve and return. She is scaffolding her child's learning. She is providing a sensitive little step one up from what her child is doing. You got the cow, reach for the cow, she gets the cow, then she says moo, and she copies, and then she steps up a tiny little step more and says, come with me in development. Come with me. We're going to take tiny steps up together. We're not going to say, I told you to put it in the blue space. How come you always get it wrong? Okay. Sorry, I've just heard a lot of parents in my day. All right. We're now on step 4. Are we? No, we're ending step 4. Modern language. Oh my goodness, we have a million great programs right now for this. Oh, sorry. Thank you, ma'am.
Just take it.
Oh, don't laugh at me. Use a microphone. We have a million wonderful programs out there for improving children's language, including Talk, Read, Sing, Talking is Teaching, a Clinton initiative called Too Small to Fail that has tons of great materials, and language-focused parent workshops that help parents encourage their children's language. A growing body of research is adding some nuance to this so-called word gap between low-income and middle and upper-income families by demonstrating that it's not just the quantity of words the children know that matters when it comes to building a vocabulary. It's also the quality of the communication between parent-child and the way in which the parent demonstrates language and encourages the child. Okay. All right. Now we're on 4. Food, nurture, right? Safe place to land. This is a Sarah Bareilles song. I'm not going to sing it, but if you haven't heard it, I would encourage you to go listen to it. She says, imagine that no one leaves their home unless home is the mouth of a shark, and they absolutely have to go somewhere else. We need safe places for our children to live and grow up. Safe homes, big ideas, include housing and urban development, funding affordable home initiatives nationwide, something called SHOP, the Housing Trust Fund and Self-Help Ownership, which is similar to Habitat for Humanity but is run by the federal government, and simple enforcement of landlord rules in every area. You know, when the ceiling breaks and the rain comes in, you have to fix it, but so many don't. Our spaces in homes are not safe. Small changes include things like Habitat for Humanity and the Sweden single-parent co-op model. I love this one. Sweden provides special low-interest loans for single parents who will join together in a community. Then they go to workshops together and get to know each other. And then they move into co-housing, where they live in an apartment complex together, and they have separate apartments, but they share a playground space and kitchen space. Okay. Our neighborhoods are not safe, as well as our homes not being safe for children. Big ideas include things like community policing, in which police officers are geographically assigned to a small area to patrol, and they get to know all their neighbors. diversion and reconciliation programs to stop the cradle-to-prison pipeline that put so many of our young men, especially black men, in jail. Gun violence legislation, especially federal funding for gun violence research when it comes to children, so we could figure out what actually works to reduce gun violence. A small change in safe neighborhoods is the improvement of parks and recreation, making sure that all children have access to someplace fun to play. Here are some ideas. Safe place to land. Co-abode is the single mother's housing sharing thing that I am interested in. Every Town for Gun Safety is a nonprofit organization that funds research to try to figure out how to reduce gun violence. Last month, a 2-year-old shot his father dead, right? I'm not going to go down there. Right now, 70% of Orlando's low-income residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park. That's pretty good. We're doing pretty well with providing parks. Now, if we could just make them safe and kept up. Right? Ooh, if you're paying attention to your program, you know we're on the last one, right? Now, the last one is an extra for the 21st century. In the 1700s, people really didn't need this one. But today, to be computer literate and to be able to read is absolutely necessary to have meaningful work. So we include the importance of print. What do I mean by a print-rich environment? How many of you have a wall of books in your home, at least 5 shelves high? Okay. That is a print-rich environment. How many of you have your nose in a book at least once a week of some kind? That is a print-rich environment. But many children grow up in homes with no books at all. Okay? And in other countries, many children grow up in rural areas simply never, ever, ever seeing print. There aren't any billboards, there aren't any newspapers. They simply don't get visually exposed to print. Research indicates that exposure to print and the printed word and hearing people read from the printed word and associating print with language is a very important precursor to learning how to read. I think that the first issue and big idea in a print-rich environment in America is to solve the problem of the digital divide. Many American middle and high school students have all their homework on a computer. So what if you don't have a computer, right? You're trying to do all that complicated work on your mother's phone. And she's saying, hurry up and finish your homework. I need the phone back. Okay. Sure, you could go to the local library, a wonderful place, and use the phones, and use the computers there. But those options are not available for everybody. So I think the first literacy objective should be to solve the digital divide. Fund PBS to reach everybody. I love New Zealand's approach called grocery store literacy. You remember when you used to get milk bottles and on the back it said, have you seen this child? Right? Adults remember this? Well, in New Zealand, they've taken all the print on all the cereal boxes and milk cartons and turned them into literacy lessons. Okay, so your milk carton has a story on the side and directions for parents. And in the store, there are placards that say, have your child count the grapes. Right? I threw transportation infrastructure in there because if you can't get to the library, you can't use the library. Supporting early literacy, 3 great programs, I Know My Name, ABCs, and Story World. One little point at the bottom about teaching storytelling. I've spent 5 chunks of time in Uganda and Rwanda, And I've met dozens and dozens of parents who don't know how to read. And they almost always say to me, first of all, is it too late for my 10-year-old to benefit from the stuff you're saying? At which point I say, of course not, right? But the second question they say is, I can't read. How do I help my child do their homework? And I always talk to them about storytelling, the importance of having a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a narrative flow, and then quizzing their children about what was in the story and telling back what they heard and learned. It's a marvelous way to introduce story format to children. So, who read to you? Or who do you read to? Just turn to your elbow partner quickly and say, who did you read to? Or who read to you when you were a child? There you go. How many said my dad? And how many are currently reading to someone else regularly? Okay. We got a lot of Rollins readers in this room. Okay. Now, even with these 5 pillars, some of our friends need an extra leg up. They might need specialized teaching through applied behavior analysis or other kinds of interventions. Our friends with Down syndrome, our friends with cerebral palsy, our friends who don't see or hear well, they may need some additional help beyond the 5 pillars that I've talked about. For them, we have your pediatrician, always the first stop. The Children's Medical Health Program of Florida, which provides care to so many. Kinder Consulting, one of our neighbors in Maitland that provides early intervention and mental health services for children. Advanced Behavior Academy, 2 employees are here today, including the founder and a graduate of Rollins College in what year?
Not saying here.
She's not saying here. Let's just say it was after I got here and before I got tenure. And the Florida Association of Infant Mental Health. Geez, you didn't even know infants could have mental health, did you? Right? But they do. Now, we're in the wrap-up phase. So we've provided 5 pillars of what every child needs. My dream is that every one of the billion children walking beside the street around the world with nothing to eat would one day have all 5 of these pillars. And that's what keeps me awake at night. Not the refinements. So just a couple, some of the students asked me to share some things I've learned in 34 years at Rollins. So I managed to cut these to just a couple, okay? So now is the, does she have any wisdom part? The first principle about working with children or life, I call fly the plane. My husband's a pilot, and we flew a lot together in our own plane when our children were younger. One time, we were flying in Florida, and we were in IFR conditions. That means that there's soup, like clouds all around the plane, and you have to pay attention to the instruments. I dropped the map. I dove down to get the map, and my elbow bumped the yoke, so his yoke went like this. And at the same time, the 2.5-year-old in the backseat threw up. And I'm going, where's the map? Do you need the map? And he's going, you know what he's doing? And I'm thinking, how come this guy isn't helping me? Geez Louise, I got throw up here. And after we landed through the pouring rain, I said, why didn't you help me? And he said, honey, when we're in a plane, my only job is to fly the plane. Everything everything else is extra. So for me, that means two things. The first is for young children. If we fly the plane, if we feed them, and we talk to them, and we wrap them in love, and we provide them with literacy, they're going to do pretty well. If we take away those things, they're going to fall apart. The other thing that fly the plane means, since some of you know that I have this little tattoo on my wrist, okay? This is a semicolon, and it signifies my life is not over. It also means that I have struggled with mental health challenges in my life, even when I've been a faculty member teaching you all. Fly the plane to me means I show up, I teach my class, I don't cancel, I grade papers in a week, and I always have a movie in my back pocket. Okay. So I submit to you, what does it mean in your life to fly the plane? If you have mental health challenges, how do you keep yourself on track and know what first things first means? So you're sitting here, you're going, wow, the world is terrible. How am I going to help children? What should I do? That's your next question. Frederick Buechner wrote, "The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. My work gives me inestimable joy." Okay? But not always. Sometimes it's just flippin' hard work. One more ASQ, one more PPVT, one more time. One year I left Piaget out of all my classes because I just couldn't do it, okay? I said, here's the book, here's the reading, right? So the fact that you look for the place God calls you is your vocation. Vocation literally means I'm called. Okay? So I believe in a sense of calling, and I hope you do too. I also believe that we are imago Dei. We are made in the image of God. For the atheists among us, I respect you. And what this really means is that every human being is worthy of our love and is unique. Okay. Something went wrong. Helpers? Anybody? Sorry. I just...
Yes. Go.
Sorry.
Take the initiative. Go.
All right, then. I can't put it out. Really need it.
Yay! Got it.
It's back. Okay. Or, so you could say Imago Dei, or you could say, in the words of Harry Bosch, say it together with me, everybody counts or nobody counts. Okay? Okay. Last point, act now. Just do it. Just do something. Small change adds up. Marian Wright Edelman talked to us at summer camp about what she called mosquito politics. Just keep buzzing, keep writing, keep kicking the soccer ball, keep saying, but we need a child development center, but we need a bigger child development center. Yes, we do. Just keep buzzing, keep at it, whatever you're called to do. Okay? And if nothing else works, I shall write a strongly worded letter. Okay? Okay? Make good choices. Pick what you do. Don't just dive in there and volunteer for the first cool thing that comes by. Do your homework, find out what works, find out what matches your skills and abilities, and find your path towards helping children. Okay? There's my beautiful mother again. What I didn't tell you was that she died when I was 14. I then went into several years where I was extremely lonely as a teenager. And I developed a heart for people who are wounded, lonely, isolated, afraid, and an absolute compulsion to track them down and talk to them and work with them. And I learned along the way that I didn't have to hunt out people who needed me. They were going to come find me. I didn't have to work so hard at it. I could just be myself. And so this became what we in my faith call a life verse. Whatever your hand finds for you to do it with all your might, for there is no activity or planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave, which is where we are all going. Okay? I have enjoyed talking with you this evening. It's been so much fun. I didn't use all my props, but that always happens to me. And I appreciate you being here. In terms of the Good Neighbor Conference and Good Neighbor Series, we will see you next year. And I thank you for your attention.
I was curious about your work in Uganda and what you do there exactly with the parents, I guess.
I've been really fortunate to partner with Global Livingston Institute, an organization that has a center in Uganda and has been partly funded by the David Lord Family Foundation. And I've been there several times. So the first time I went as a missionary, not connected with Rollins, and fell in love with the people in Rwanda. And then I went back with a professor from here to work in an elementary school and preschool, training teachers. Then I went back again and was invited to come do teacher training for a month, and it's just sort of gone from there. This past summer, I unexpectedly supervised interns, wherever they are. And I do work there on helping the community identify their top priority needs in education and then writing grant proposals to try to fit those needs.
Dr. Carnahan, first of all, thank you so much. What a great presentation. Maybe if you could just touch on how you see electronic media in the role of developmental childhood and how to leverage that effectively.
This is not my area of expertise, so I just have a few opinions. I do have two students, Sam Cavallo and Laura Arnoletti, who right now are assessing parents' use of media with kids under 5. The danger of media is seldom what it does, it's what it prevents. It keeps people from having family dinners. It keeps people from talking to their friends in the car. It keeps people from running around outside playing stickball. So children's media can also be extremely damaging and isn't well regulated in terms of attacking children's self-esteem and their body image. And there are some serious repercussions from that. As far as I understand it, video games don't necessarily make kids more violent. It's more like children who like violence gravitate towards violent video games, and then they get violenter, right? And they enter into a spiral. So and this is not my field, but in my opinion, never say personal opinion because all opinions are personal. In my opinion, we need a better regulated social media system to protect our children under the age of 16, and we need parents and families to lay down the law and reclaim family time. That's my opinion.
What is the area or part of your work in this area in Central Florida that you think has had the biggest impact on our community that you've worked on?
Two projects that I was fortunate enough to get in on. The first is I spent 5 years as a program evaluator for Healthy Families Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. And in cooperation with the same programs in Tampa counties, we provided data that indicated that home visiting was working to reduce the rate of child maltreatment, and that Healthy Families became statewide. I think that was big for me. Before that, I spent 7 years testing babies 2 days a week at Arnold Palmer, and I came to a point where I said, I need not to help 2 babies a day. I got to figure out how to help 5,000. And so I quit Arnold Palmer and became a program evaluator and worked with Success by 6 back in the days, and that helped them in Florida United's way. So I think that's the big one because it went statewide. Not because of anything that I specifically did, but because time was ripe for the government to want to read the data. And we were able to give them really good data. So that was important. Script for Success, I think, still has repercussions. This was a project where we realized that the children in child care centers who had government funding for their spots were getting checked every 6 months to see how they were doing developmentally. But nobody else was, only the funded slots. So we developed a program to train centers to screen all the children in the building. And honestly, the early interventionists didn't really like it because suddenly they had this flood of kids who needed services. So Script for Success, I think. And the last one is that, and this is just plain geeky research, I spent, too many years working with United Way, developing a way to use logic models to evaluate programs.
That was your fault.
Yes, it was. I designed your logic model. I'm sorry, yes. But what we did was convince all the funders in Orlando to use the same frickin' logic model. So you didn't have 6 to fill out. That's about it. So kind of geeky stuff. I think the thing God is happiest with me for is that Diane Doyle and I have been a partnership for 17 years. And through all our ups and downs and all our successes and failures, we have worked as a team.